My name's Stephen Dilly, and I used to be the CEO of Sierra Oncology. Sierra Oncology was a virtual biotech company that was developing a drug called momelotinib for the treatment of patients with myelofibrosis. Myelofibrosis is a disease of the bone marrow where over time the bone marrow gets ablated by fibrotic tissue. It's a form of bone marrow cancer, and it's often a slow burning disease, but sometimes it's quite aggressive.
The principal therapy for these patients is one that enables them to feel better in some ways, but also has a side effect that is actually one of the hallmarks of the disease, which is low red blood cell count.
Momelotinib for myelofibrosis is a game-changing product for patients. It really helps them with their anemia and will absolutely become a standard of care for those patients.
Sierra Oncology started off as a company called Pronai. Many of the people working with Pronai had actually been in a company called YM Biosciences 5 years earlier, and they'd been working on this curiosity called momelotinib. Momelotinib had become available for reacquisition from Gilead.
Momelotinib had been through 2 failed phase 3 studies before, and it would be easy to write that off. In fact, that is what the prior owner, Gilead, had done. When I reached out to him about the opportunity to work with Sierra Oncology, not only did he express a high degree of interest, he said, "This is exactly the kind of company I would like to get involved with."
We had to look for a new CEO. Stephen was a great choice because he had a relationship already with our key existing investors. So they knew him, they trusted him.
As a physician scientist, he cares deeply about the patients and doing the right thing by them.
I don't think I've ever worked with anybody that I looked at them listening more than I looked at them being spoken to.
He will set out a very aggressive goal for the organization, and initially people are shocked, but people really rally behind it and figure out how to get there.
Drug development is a very complex business, and you've got a lot of people to keep happy. And Stephen has a wonderful ability to listen to everybody, make them feel heard, but at the same time, take action and get things done.
Sierra Oncology was a fascinating challenge. The Momentum trial was the phase 3, the final study for momelotinib approval for patients with myelofibrosis. Executing the Momentum trial really required threading a needle.
Going into the pandemic, there was obviously concern that we wouldn't be able to enroll to schedule.
It was also impossible to visit cancer centers that were desperately trying to protect their patients from exposure to the COVID virus. And that imposed some brand new problems in that things that we would routinely do as a company running a clinical trial, we couldn't do anymore. And so we were coming to the end of the trial in late 2021, really scratching our heads.
The team had planned to do the clinical trial at a large number of clinical centres and over 20 or so countries. That was really fortuitous when it came to COVID, because when one region was suffering from lockdown or was particularly affected by COVID, by the pandemic, we were able to enrol in other areas that weren't so affected.
It was a dialogue with the FDA about what they needed, and so we had to learn this new way of doing things, but my goodness, I'm proud of how it went.
At the beginning of the year, we were able to successfully read out top-line data from the pivotal phase 3 trial Momentum related to momelotinib, and it successfully delivered on both primary and secondary outcomes. From that pivotal point, we were able to then finalize and submit our key regulatory submission to the FDA, advancing the product one step closer to being accessible to the patients.
It just illustrates how remarkable a CEO Stephen is, that he was able to navigate a phase 3 clinical trial in a rare form of cancer and keep that study on track, enrolling through the pandemic. which I can tell you the vast majority of biotech companies were unable to do.
We raised about 155 million very soon after our phase 3 data. And we were able to do that because we'd spent a lot of time educating investors about the really clear opportunity, the really clear gap that momelotinib would fill.
Sierra announced the momelotinib data, and 3 weeks later, GSK approached.
I did not want to be acquired at that point. And actually that was a great thing because my first response was, we're not for sale. We are committed to what we're doing. He named a number and I said, we're still not for sale. Others started to call us and wanted to talk to us about momelotinib. And then we got into a process.
They put forth a proposal, and between negotiating with them as well as generating competition, we were able to improve the price.
I didn't sleep very much that night because I was waiting for that press release to come out. And when it did, it was, just the most exciting moment in my career.
Ultimately, what Sierra was able to do was bring a product from $3 million acquisition of momelotinib to a $1.9 billion sale to GSK.
Well, momelotinib's had a long journey, but we finally got to the finish line.
The outcome for the M&A really illustrated Stephen's strengths as a CEO, as well as his ability to bring drugs to patients.
He's really having a lot of fun. I think could have stepped down years ago from doing this level of work, adding this level of stress to his life, but I think he really wants to make a difference in bringing great products to market, developing great people, and building great companies. So I can't see him slowing down anytime soon.
One of the most satisfying things about what I do is having an impossible dream and then it actually happens. It was really satisfying, really invigorating, and filled my tank for the next part of the journey.